It was a cold, rainy night. Jack Rowan sat alone in his small apartment, listening to the silence. Then came a knock. Soft, hesitant. He opened the door. A young woman stood there, soaked through, shivering. "Please," she whispered, "I just need somewhere to stay tonight." His neighbor poked her head out, laughing. "Don't do it. She's probably trouble." Jack glanced back at his daughter sleeping in the next room. Then he nodded slowly. "You can sleep on the couch." The next morning he woke up. The apartment was empty. She was gone. Then his phone rang. A stranger's voice said, "Mr. Rowan, I'm calling from the governor's office." Jack Rowan was 40 years old, but some days he felt like 80. He worked the night shift at a textile factory, 10 hours on his feet, machinery roaring, dust in his lungs, every single night. But he never complained, because waiting at home was Ella, his 10-year-old daughter, his entire world. 3 years ago, his wife died in a car accident. One moment she was there, the next she was gone. Just like that. The insurance barely covered the funeral. Jack was left with a small apartment, a broken heart, and a little girl who cried herself to sleep every night. But he made a promise, standing at his wife's grave, holding Ella's tiny hand. "We're going to be okay, I promise." So he worked, and worked, and worked. The neighbors knew him. Some admired him. Most pitied him. A few thought he was foolish. "Jack's too trusting," they would say. He'd give his last dollar to a stranger. And they were right. Jack believed in second chances. He believed people deserved kindness, even when the world told him otherwise. On the wall of his small living room hung an old clock, his wife's favorite. It didn't keep perfect time anymore, but it still ticked, still tried. That clock reminded him every day, keep going, keep trying. That rainy night, Jack had just come home from his shift. Ella was asleep. He sat on the couch, exhausted, staring at nothing. Then the knock came. When he opened the door, the young woman looked terrified. Her clothes were torn. Her hands were bruised. She carried only a small backpack. "Please," she said again, "I won't cause trouble. I just need one night." His neighbor, Mrs. Chen, appeared in her doorway. "Jack, don't be stupid. You have a child in there." He looked at the girl, really looked at her, saw the fear in her eyes, the desperation. He thought about his wife. What would she do? He stepped aside. "Come in." The girl's name was Sophie. She didn't say much. Jack didn't ask. He gave her a cup of hot tea, found a clean blanket, set up the couch for her. "The bathroom is down the hall," he said quietly. "There's bread in the kitchen if you're hungry. I'll be in the next room if you need anything." Sophie stared at him, like she couldn't believe what was happening. "Why are you helping me?" she whispered. Jack looked at his wife's clock on the wall, still ticking. "Because someone once told me that kindness is never wasted," he said, "even when it feels like it is." He went to check on Ella. She was sleeping peacefully. He kissed her forehead. Then he sat in the chair by his bedroom door, just in case, watching, protecting. Not because he didn't trust Sophie, but because that's what fathers do. Sophie lay on the couch, wrapped in the blanket. For the first time in 3 days, she felt safe. She looked at the old clock on the wall, heard it ticking in the quiet apartment, and she cried, silently, so no one would hear. In the morning, everything would change. But that night, in that small apartment, two broken people found something they thought was gone forever: hope. Jack woke up at 6 in the morning. The apartment was quiet. Too quiet. He walked into the living room. The blanket was folded neatly on the couch. The teacup was washed and placed in the sink. Sophie was gone. On the coffee table was a small note. Just 5 words. "You'll get a call soon." Jack stared at it, confused. Then he heard Ella stirring in her room. "Daddy," she called out. "I'm here, sweetie." He made breakfast, got Ella ready for school, tried to forget about the strange night. But Mrs. Chen didn't forget. By noon, the entire building knew. Jack had let a homeless woman sleep in his apartment, with his daughter there. Mrs. Chen knocked on his door that afternoon. Behind her stood 3 other neighbors. Jack, we need to talk, she said. Not kindly. What's this about? You brought a stranger into your home, around Ella. Are you insane? He sighed. She needed help, that's all. That's all. Mr. Rodriguez from downstairs stepped forward. Jack, we're worried about Ella's safety. This is reckless. She's a child, Jack, Mrs. Chen added. What if that woman was dangerous? What if she robbed you, or worse? She didn't, Jack said quietly. She just needed one night. They shook their heads, disappointed, angry. The worst part came 2 days later. A woman in a business suit knocked on his door. She showed him a badge. Mr. Rowan, I'm Linda Foster, Child Protective Services. We received a complaint. Jack's heart dropped. A complaint? About your living situation. May I come in? She walked through the apartment, checked Ella's room, asked questions, took notes. Mr. Rowan, we understand you recently allowed an unidentified woman to stay here overnight. Is that correct? I helped someone who needed help, he said. That's all. With your minor daughter present, she was safe. I was watching. Ms. Foster closed her notebook. Mr. Rowan, I'm not here to judge your character, but you need to understand. This looks bad, very bad. So helping someone is bad now? Helping a stranger without verification, without knowing who they are, with a child in your care? Yes, that's concerning. She left him with a warning and a file that would stay open for 30 days. Jack sat on the couch, buried his face in his hands. When Ella came home from school, she climbed onto his lap. Daddy, why is everyone mad at you? Because I did something they think was wrong. Was it wrong? He looked at her, this beautiful girl who was his whole world. No, baby, it wasn't wrong. But sometimes doing the right thing makes people scared. That night, Jack couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Sophie, about the note. You'll get a call soon? What did that mean? 3 days passed. Nothing happened. The neighbors avoided him. Mrs. Chen stopped saying hello. Even at work, people whispered, Did you hear about Jack? Brought some random girl home. With his kid there. He started to wonder if he had been stupid. If everyone was right. Then on Thursday morning, his phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. Hello? Mr. Rowan, this is Catherine Mills. I'm calling from the governor's office. Jack froze. I'm sorry, what? The governor's office. We'd like to schedule a meeting with you. Tomorrow, if possible. Is this some kind of joke? No, sir. Ms. Sophie Carter has recommended you for a position with our new housing initiative. She spoke very highly of you. Jack's mind went blank. Sophie Carter? Yes, sir. The governor's daughter. I believe you met her last week. He sat down, hard. I don't understand. All will be explained at the meeting, Mr. Rowan. Can we expect you at 10 tomorrow morning? He hung up, stared at the wall. Sophie, the girl on his couch, was the governor's daughter. That night, he couldn't eat, couldn't think. The next morning, he put on his only suit, the one he wore to his wife's funeral, the one he wore to job interviews. He took the bus downtown, to the State Building. Security checked his ID, escorted him to the 15th floor, and there, in a conference room with windows overlooking the city, sat Sophie. But she wasn't the scared, wet girl from that night. She wore a navy suit. Her hair was perfect. She looked powerful, confident. She stood when he entered, smiled. Hello, Jack. He didn't know what to say. I don't understand, he finally managed. What's going on? She gestured to a chair. Sit down, please. Let me explain everything. Jack sat. His hands were shaking. That night, Sophie began, I was running from a man who attacked me at a charity event. I was terrified, lost. I knocked on 7 doors before yours. 7 doors. Every single one closed in my face. She looked at him, her eyes serious. You were the only one who opened your door, the only one who didn't ask questions, who didn't judge, who just helped. Anyone would have done the same, Jack said. Sophie shook her head. No, Jack, they wouldn't. And that's the problem. She slid a folder across the table. This is a job offer to manage the technical operations for our new state housing program, inspired by people like you, who still believe in helping others. Jack stared at the folder, unable to move. Why me? Sophie smiled. Because when I knocked, everyone closed their door. Except you. Jack opened the folder with trembling hands. Inside was a formal job offer. Technical Operations Manager, State Housing Initiative. Salary, $75,000 a year, more than double what he made at the factory. He looked up at Sophie. I don't understand. I'm just a factory worker. I don't have qualifications for this. Sophie sat across from him. You have the most important qualification. You understand what it means to have nothing, and you still choose to give. She pulled out her phone, showed him a photo. This was taken the night I came to your door. The image showed Sophie at a charity gala. Beautiful dress, perfect makeup, standing next to an older man in an expensive suit. That's State Senator Marcus Webb, she said. He's been a family friend for years. Or so we thought. Her voice got quieter. That night, he cornered me in a back hallway, tried to force himself on me. When I fought back, he threatened my family, said he'd destroy my father's career if I told anyone. Jack felt anger rising in his chest. Did you tell your father? Not then. I panicked. I ran. I grabbed my bag and just ran. I didn't know where to go. I couldn't go home because the press watches our house constantly. I couldn't call the police because Webb has connections everywhere. She looked at her hands. I was terrified, alone, and nobody would help me. Jack understood now. The 7 doors. 7 doors, Sophie repeated. I knocked. I begged. One woman said she didn't want trouble. One man threatened to call the cops on me. One couple laughed and told me to try a shelter. She met his eyes. And then I knocked on your door. Jack remembered that moment, the fear in her eyes, the desperation. You didn't ask who I was, Sophie continued. You didn't ask what happened. You didn't judge me. You just gave me tea and a blanket, and you watched over me all night. I saw you sitting in that chair by your bedroom door. I have a daughter, Jack said simply. I couldn't just leave you unprotected. Sophie smiled. That's exactly what I told my father. When I finally went home the next morning and told him everything, I said I met someone who reminded me that good people still exist. She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. My father was furious, not at you, at himself, at the system, at how someone could be so desperate and nobody would help. What happened to Webb? Jack asked. He's under investigation now. Multiple women have come forward, but that's not why we're here. She turned back to him. We're here because you inspired something bigger. Another person entered the room, an older man in a gray suit, distinguished, powerful. Mr. Rowan, Sophie said, this is my father, Governor James Carter. Jack stood up quickly, almost knocked over his chair. The governor extended his hand. Please sit down. No need for formalities. They shook hands. The governor's grip was firm, sincere. Mr. Rowan, my daughter told me what you did, and it made me realize something. We have programs for the homeless, we have shelters, we have policies, but we don't have humanity. He sat down next to Sophie. People are afraid to help each other now, afraid of lawsuits, afraid of danger, afraid of judgment, and because of that fear, we've lost something essential. Jack listened, still trying to process everything. This housing initiative isn't just about buildings, the governor continued. It's about rebuilding trust, creating communities where people help each other again, where kindness isn't seen as weakness or stupidity. Sophie added, we want you to manage the technical side, inspections, safety standards, making sure these homes are actually livable, not just boxes to check on a government form. But why me? Jack asked again. I'm nobody. I'm just a guy who let someone sleep on his couch. The governor leaned forward. That's exactly why it has to be you, because you understand what it's like. You know what real people need. Not politicians, not bureaucrats, real people. Jack thought about his apartment, the leaky faucet he couldn't afford to fix, the heater that only worked half the time, the mold in the bathroom corner. I know what people need, he said slowly, because I need those things too. Exactly, Sophie said, and that's what makes you perfect for this. The room was quiet for a moment. Then Jack asked the question he'd been afraid to ask. What about Child Protective Services? They opened a file on me because I helped you. Sophie and her father exchanged a look. That file has been closed, the governor said, with a personal commendation from my office. You'll receive a formal apology from the agency. Jack felt something break inside him, a tension he'd been carrying for days. And the neighbors? He asked quietly. Sophie smiled. They're about to have a very interesting week. The next day, the story broke. Every news channel, every newspaper, every website. Governor's daughter saved by single father's kindness. While 7 homes turned her away, one man opened his door. Jack Rowan, the face of true compassion. Jack's phone exploded with calls, messages, emails, interview requests. He ignored most of them, went to work like normal. But when he walked into the factory that afternoon, everyone stopped, stared. His supervisor approached him, uncomfortable. Jack, I don't know what to say. I had no idea. Nobody did, Jack said. That was the point. That evening, reporters waited outside his apartment building. Cameras, microphones, lights. He pushed through them without speaking, went inside. Mrs. Chen was waiting in the hallway. Her face was red, embarrassed. Jack, I need to apologize. I was wrong. I said terrible things. He looked at her. This woman who had reported him to CPS, who had turned the entire building against him. It's okay, he said. You were scared. People do things when they're scared. But I almost cost you your daughter. But you didn't, Jack interrupted. And now you know. Sometimes the scary thing is the right thing. He went into his apartment, closed the door. Ella ran to him. Daddy, you're on TV. Everyone at school saw. He picked her up, held her tight. Am I in trouble? She asked. No, baby. We're not in trouble anymore. That night he sat on the couch, the same couch where Sophie had slept, where this had all started. His phone buzzed. A text from Sophie. Press conference tomorrow. Governor's mansion. Be there at 10 a.m. Wear the suit. You're going to change everything. Jack looked at his wife's clock on the wall. Still ticking. Still trying. He thought about what she would say if she were here. She'd probably say the same thing she always said. Do the right thing, even when it's hard. He closed his eyes. Tomorrow everything would change. But tonight, he was just Jack. A father. A man who opened a door. And that was enough. The press conference was unlike anything Jack had ever experienced. Cameras everywhere, hundreds of reporters. The room buzzed with energy. Sophie stood at the podium. Professional. Powerful. But when she looked at Jack standing in the corner, she smiled. A real smile. 3 weeks ago I was attacked, she began. The room went silent. I ran, I was terrified. And I learned something that night. I learned that fear has made us cruel. She paused. Let that sink in. I knocked on 7 doors, 7 families, 7 chances for someone to do the right thing, and 7 times I was turned away. A reporter raised her hand. Where did you finally find help? Sophie gestured to Jack. Come here, please. He walked to the podium on shaking legs. The cameras flashed like lightning. This is Jack Rowan, Sophie said. A single father, a factory worker, a man who had every reason to turn me away. But he didn't. She turned to face him. He gave me tea, a blanket, safety. He asked nothing in return, expected nothing. He just helped because he believed it was right. The reporters erupted with questions. Sophie raised her hand for silence. Because of Jack, we're launching the Rowan Initiative, a statewide program to provide housing, support, and dignity to those who need it most. And Jack will lead the technical operations. Another reporter shouted, what about the neighbors who reported him to CPS? Who called him reckless? Sophie's expression hardened. Those neighbors are why we need this program, because we've created a society where kindness is suspicious, where helping someone makes you the bad guy. After the conference, Mrs. Chen called Jack. I saw the news. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, Jack replied. But I do. I was wrong. I judged you. I made your life hell. And you were right all along. Mr. Rodriguez from downstairs came to his door that evening, brought a bottle of wine. I'm sorry, Jack. I should have trusted you. One by one, the neighbors who had condemned him came to apologize. Some brought food, some brought gifts for Ella, some just wanted to shake his hand. Jack accepted every apology, because that's who he was. The Child Protective Services agent, Linda Foster, sent him a formal letter, an apology, and a commendation for his character. At the factory, his co-workers threw him a party. "To Jack," they cheered, "the guy who actually did something good." His supervisor pulled him aside. "I heard about the new job. We're losing a good man, but I'm proud of you." "Thank you," Jack said, "for everything." On Friday, Jack's last day at the factory, he worked his final shift. 10 hours on his feet, machinery roaring, dust in his lungs. But this time, it felt different, because he knew it was ending. The struggle, the exhaustion, the barely surviving. When his shift ended, he walked out into the dawn. The sun was rising, orange and gold across the sky. Ella was waiting at home, and Sophie had texted him about the new office, his office, where he'd helped build something that mattered. That weekend, Sophie came to visit. She brought Chinese takeout and a gift for Ella, a telescope. "For looking at stars," Sophie said, "and dreaming big." Ella hugged her. "Are you my daddy's friend now?" Sophie looked at Jack. "Yes, I think I am." They ate dinner together, laughed, told stories. It felt normal, like family. And for the first time in 3 years, Jack's apartment didn't feel empty. It felt like home. 1 year later, Jack stood in front of a brand new building. 5 stories, clean, modern, beautiful. Above the entrance, a sign, "Rowan House," because kindness needs no background check. Behind him, a crowd gathered. Reporters, politicians, community members, and residents who would actually live here. Sophie stood at the podium. "A year ago, my father and I stood with Jack Rowan and promised change. Today, we deliver on that promise." She gestured to the building. Rowan House is the first of 15 facilities opening across the state. Safe housing, job training, mental health services, everything people need to rebuild their lives. The crowd applauded. "But this building represents something bigger," Sophie continued. "It represents the idea that one person can make a difference, that one act of kindness can change the world." She looked at Jack. "Come say something." He stepped to the microphone. His hands were sweating. "A year ago, I was just trying to survive," he began. "Working nights, raising my daughter alone, barely keeping my head above water." He paused, looked at the faces in the crowd. "Then one rainy night, someone knocked on my door, and I made a choice everyone told me was stupid, dangerous, wrong." He smiled. "And they were right to be concerned. I had a daughter to protect, but I also had a belief that everyone deserves a chance, that kindness matters." Ella stood next to him now, holding his hand. She was 11, taller, proud of her father. "This building isn't named after me because I'm special," Jack continued. "It's named Rowan House because it represents what happens when ordinary people do extraordinary things. When we choose compassion over fear." Sophie stepped forward. "Cut the ribbon." The crowd cheered. Inside, families moved into their new homes. Jack walked through the halls, checked every detail. In one apartment, a young mother unpacked boxes while her children played. She saw Jack and stopped. "Thank you," she said simply. "You don't know what this means." But he did know, because he'd been there. That evening, as the sun set, Jack sat on a bench outside Rowan House. Ella sat beside him. Sophie joined them. "You did it," Sophie said quietly. "You changed everything." Jack looked at his daughter, at the building, at the life he'd built from one simple choice. "No," he said, "we did it, because one person opens a door, but it takes everyone to build a home." Ella leaned against him. "Dad, are we going to be okay?" He kissed the top of her head. "Yeah, baby, we're going to be more than okay." In their new apartment, bigger and better than before, his wife's old clock would still be ticking, still carrying the same message. Keep going, keep trying, keep believing, because kindness is never wasted. That night, I thought I saved a stranger. Turns out she saved me from forgetting what kindness is for. Subscribe if you believe a small act can start something bigger than you imagine.